What's up, everybody? It's Dan, Binder Boneyard, coming at you from the office. Beautiful August day. It's pretty hot, but it's nice. So it's actually a Sunday. Normally I do these on Saturday, but I am in here today trying to prep for the week. So I figured I would knock out one of these. A lot of stuff on my mind. I'll try to hammer through this here. The internet is changing. People's ideas of things are changing. It's been around long enough now that you're seeing the evolution of things like social media. Facebook started, I think I joined Facebook in like 2009. And then I think Instagram in like 2010 or something like that. And you've seen it rotate through from, people sharing pictures of their breakfast to full on political assaults on, one group of people or another. And I think the world's getting tired of it. People are getting weary. AI is making you question whether what you're looking at is real. And you can tell if you read the comments, you can tell the people who haven't, maybe taken that pill yet, and they still think everything they see on the internet is real. There's obvious AI posts, and you see someone comment saying, that's my mom in the background, or, that's how it used to be, and I miss those days. And it's like, well, that person had 7 fingers on one hand. I don't think you missed that day. But anyway, so I appreciate you being here, because this is not AI. This is actually my voice. Maybe someday AI will use my voice to fool you into thinking something. But for now, I am still a real person. And so I'm just trying to keep the real knowledge, the real information, the straight dope, as they used to say. I don't post AI stuff on my pages unless it's to point out something. I don't use AI to write anything. I don't AI generate comments or posts on things. Try to keep it as real as possible. So that's why I'm hoping that over the years, as social media and the internet continues to change, that this podcast and my YouTube channel and even some of the archived Instagram stuff is a reliable source for people to refer back to, because there will be a time. It happened in print media. People were creating newspapers just so they could publish their own narrative and their own information to sway public opinion. And, it's happening in social media. It's happening again. So I'm hoping, like I said, that you guys keep coming back for the real deal stuff. Tell your friends, keep sharing it. Because there will be a point where this information is getting fewer and fewer. These guys are dying. Less guys know this stuff. Less people are learning this stuff. Or have the opportunity to experience it. Like, that's what makes my experience so different than a lot of the YouTube channel people or whatever, is that I spent the last 25 years ruining this stuff so that I could learn how to do it the right way. Where I watch these YouTube videos where people are taking the information that they're giving, or the story that they're telling or whatever, as their experts. And you watch these videos and they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. This is all new. Why is it doing this? I don't understand why this is happening. Gosh, I'm going to have to check this out and come back. And then the video starts over, or starts up again half an hour later. And they're like, okay, I called a friend and he told me this. It's like, those kinds of videos are dangerous, because these guys are hammering on stuff. They're doing things they're learning in real time in front of you, which some people learn that way. But if you don't watch the rest of the video, like anybody that's doing technical work and they're stuck, they're not going to sit through a 45-minute video of you explaining everything. They're going to go to the part where they're stuck at, watch that 30 seconds, and then go try what they just saw in the video. But if you're trying something that's not working, or the person in the video is trying something that's not working, and you stop watching it before they get to the part where they go, oh, this isn't working, then you're going to create the same problems. So, the YouTubes are filling up with videos like that, where people are thinking because they have a YouTube channel that they're some sort of expert, which not the case. Anybody and their jackleg brother can make a YouTube video and produce it as like the word, and it's not. So again, I'm hoping that the real information will rise to the top, and eventually those kinds of people will get tired of working on these things, or age out of it, get tired of making YouTube videos, because everybody thinks that you make a YouTube video and you get rich and famous. I can tell you from having a YouTube channel for 11 years now, not the case. So anyway, that's enough ramble about that. I'm just appreciative of everybody that's here, everyone that follows along and listens. I am grateful for you guys, all the Patreon donators, everybody. Like, I'm happy you're here. So, yes, grateful. That leads me into topic. I know this is out of left field now. Brakes. I've been getting a lot of calls from people looking for brake parts, brake upgrades, brake technical support, which irritates the bejesus out of me, because they don't buy the parts from us. They go, they buy the parts from another shop or their local Napa or Rock Auto. Rock Auto is the bane of my existence when it comes to misinformation and missed parts. And I get these calls from guys and they're like, I changed all my wheel cylinders and now nothing works. And I'm like, well, are they the same, or what are they? What are they doing? Well, I had to buy an adapter because this one didn't have the right thread. I'm like, well, there's part of your problem, because you may have a different bore size, you may have whatever. So when a person is doing their brakes, it's really important to make sure you're getting the right parts, you're matching them exactly. Don't just go to the counter guy and say, hey, I need this wheel cylinder, and hope that you get the right wheel cylinder. You may have to take your old wheel cylinder, peel the rubber boot back, push the aluminum cup down, measure that bore size if you can, or pop the cup out with use a little compressed air and a rag so they don't go flying across the shop. Measure that cup or the aluminum pusher. I don't know what you call it, the arbor or whatever the thing is that the cup rides against to make the brakes work. See, that's how professional I am, but I'm not going to pause, go to a book, find the word, and then come back and tell you the word like I'm an expert. It's whatever that thing is that pushes on the shoe, that thing. You'll know what I'm talking about when you take it apart. But you have to measure that to make sure you're getting the right bore size to match the master cylinder, because it's all matched. If you have an 1.1 inch master cylinder, you need to make sure that your wheel cylinders are matched. I know, like on the Scout 2s, because see, there's differences. There is it's all fluid movement and pressure and volume, and it's a math problem that I can't wrap my head around because I didn't do very good at math. But the Scout 2 with disc brake master cylinder is an 1.1 inch bore. But the rear wheel cylinders are like 15/16. So it takes less pedal travel to move the wheel cylinder the same amount of, or move it a distance. So, I don't know the number exactly. I'm just going to make some randomized statements here, but an inch and an eighth master cylinder, if it moves, a quarter of an inch, it's going to move that 15/16 wheel cylinder 3/8 of an inch. Like the volume of fluid is going to be greater coming out of that master cylinder than what the wheel cylinder can handle. So, for example, on a C series 4-wheel drum brake 3/4 ton, inch and an eighth master cylinder bore, and all of the wheel cylinders are also inch and an eighth. So the amount of travel that the pedal makes is the same amount of travel that the wheel cylinders make. It's just fluid. I don't know. I don't understand how it all works, but I know that it works. So it's important that you're matching parts, matching the stuff, and not throwing anything away until the job is 100% done and you know that it works correctly. It feels right. It stops right. There's nothing weird. I'm getting calls from guys all the time that are like, I threw my old wheel cylinders away. I've got these new ones and now nothing doesn't work and I can't measure the old ones. Or it's like, what thread is my wheel cylinder because the line won't go into it, but the counter guy said this is what I needed, or Rock Auto sent me these and this is what I thought I needed. So it's really important that you don't get rid of anything until you're done. And this goes even for the brake shoes. Nowadays they're getting harder and harder to get. Napa has discontinued the 12 by inch and 3/4 shoe, which is common in the C series trucks. They are going to be doing away with the 11 by 2, which is in Scout 800s and some other applications. I believe Napa is doing away with those. So your only option here in another couple of years is going to be a reline, meaning you have to send your original shoes into a reliner to be re-shoed, and then they send them back to you. So the days of the Saturday brake job are going to be going away here real fast. So keep that in mind anytime you're going to do brake stuff. Something too, you guys with the 50s trucks that have the brass banjo fittings on the master cylinder. I'm getting more and more calls from people breaking them because they're over tightening things. The brake light switch on the S series, for example, it threads into that brass block at the end of the master cylinder. Well, everyone's like, oh, this needs to be super, super tight so it doesn't leak and I don't lose my brakes. Well, they don't know the torque value. They go super tight and they split that fitting. And then no amount of tightening will fix it because it's broken. And now they just went from, marginal brakes to no brakes at all. And you can't find that fitting. That fitting is unobtainium, as far as I know. So you have to be careful with any of that brass stuff, because some of it, you break it, that's it, gone forever. So, keep that in mind when you're working on the old stuff. Heat is your friend. If you were replacing something anyways, like a wheel cylinder, we've got these ones in here where you pull the drum, pop the shoes off, you pull the boots back, and it's just this white corrosion ball of crap that comes out of the wheel cylinder. They are pitted, they're beyond repair. You used to be able to rebuild them. You run a hone down them and then throw a new cup kit in them. But now, some of these wheel cylinders are 70 years old and they've been rebuilt 4, 5, 6 times. Now they've sat for 30 years. They're super corroded. There's no bringing them back short of, pressing a stainless sleeve in and all that, which some brake places will do. And if you live in a larger city, there's still some brake remanufacturers that'll do stuff like that. I don't have that luxury out here. So you'll get those wheel cylinders that are just gnarly, and you're trying to unscrew the hard line and they won't come off. Heat, we use a little map torch. You heat the wheel cylinder up from the back side of the backing plate, heat it up real hot, and some guys will let it cool back down and then heat it back up again and then try and undo the line. And a lot of times it'll come loose. If you've already rounded it off, your line wrench, because please don't use an open end wrench on it because you're certain to ruin it. Then you got to use a tubing wrench. And a tubing wrench looks like a box end wrench with a slot in it. That's what those are for. So you really try and use those. And then if it's still not budging with one of those, or you're afraid you're going to round it off, stop, get the heat, and then try again. Only in worst case scenarios do you go to vice grips, and even then, you're not always guaranteed to make it work. A lot of times you'll end up ruining the nut on the end of the line, and then you have another adventure to go on with flaring a new brake line. I know they make pre-length, pre-flared brake lines. They're never the right length. You always end up with a loop in it or something weird because you had to use up the extra length. So, we always reflare or make a whole new line, I should say. We like nickel copper. It looks like copper tubing, but it's actually a combination of nickel and copper so that it's, can handle the pressure of brake systems, and it does not corrode, and it looks really nice. Stainless is very hard, and you bend it once and that's it, and you flare. It's hard to flare, unless you've got one of those hydraulic flaring tools. So I really like the nickel copper, or NiCop, if you look it up on Amazon. Good to have. We always have a roll of 3/16 and always have a roll of quarter here for any potential problems. But so like I said, watch your wheel cylinders. You can use heat. If you really have to be careful using heat on any of the hoses. The only time that it's acceptable to use heat on a brake hose, like the one that goes from the frame down to the rear end, the junction block on the rear end, or the front end where it goes from the frame down to the wheel cylinder. The only time it's acceptable to use heat on that is if you're replacing the line anyway. You can't heat it and then reuse it. The heat transfers through the fittings and it'll melt that Teflon liner inside of there, or it'll blow the hose up altogether. We've had a couple instances here where my young helpers didn't quite understand the assignment and they got it real hot, and that hose actually popped, blew off the end of the fitting, which is fine. Like I said, we're replacing it anyways, but beware of something like that happening. So if you have to use heat, be prepared to purchase a new a new hose as well. Do not assume that hoses are available. The brake hoses are getting harder to find, especially the front wheel cylinder ones where the hose screws right into the wheel cylinder. That's a 7/16 thread, which is weird. Uses a copper washer to seal it. It doesn't use a seat like the inverted flare brake lines do. So you have to watch out for that as well. And so really, do your homework, do your research before you dig into some of these brake systems, because you may not be able to get exactly the right part that you need, or you get it ordered from Rock Auto and it's wrong and you've got to do it again. So just keep that in mind. Master cylinders, believe it or not, are one of the more easy things to get still. I mean, I can get a master cylinder for pretty much all of them. They may be expensive, like the dual reservoir master cylinder for a C series, where it has the brake and the clutch in the same pot, sometimes referred to as a single pot system. Those are almost $300 now. I think I saw some on Rock Auto for like $160, but they were like Xing Xing Frang Xing brand. And I'm not too sure about that. I mean, who knows? The ones I get at Napa come from Mexico, so they're probably the same. I don't know. I just know that being able to take it back to the store I bought it from is convenient, versus an online exchange that takes forever and is hard to do. So, yeah, master cylinders generally is still available. But again, just double check. I know the one that's not available anymore is the step bore manual brake reservoir that was in Scout 800s. That's not available anymore. So we end up just changing that out to a 1-inch bore across the board. And then same with the wheel cylinders, you end up just running the 1-inch bore wheel cylinders. They still stop fine. That's what we have in Josie Scout. That's what all these Scouts we do here. They stop fine. So don't be afraid of that. The other thing was disc brake conversions on manual brake setups. That's all the rage these days because people are having a hard time finding the drum brake parts, or they have that in their head that the drum brakes don't stop as well or whatever. I get it. Not everybody is a brake professional. No one has the time to tune the system so that it stops straight and, it functions like it needs to. Disc brakes are just a more convenient way to go. I feel like you have to push the pedal harder to make them work. In some applications, I'm not as big a fan. I still like the 4-wheel drum that's in Josie Scout. We don't tow with it or anything like that. So, I don't feel like I need more brake, but yeah, the disc brake conversions, in the full size stuff, I encourage change the master cylinder out to the 1.125 bore master cylinder. Moves a little bit more fluid to those calipers because they have such big pistons in them that they need a little more juice, a little more movement. If you keep the 1-inch bore, you're going to have to press harder to get the squeeze you need. And it takes a little bit more pedal travel to get those calipers to engage because the pistons have such huge surface area. So that's something to think about as well as, having a balanced system like that. So I always, not always, but a lot of times I really try and encourage people to go to a power brake setup whenever they can. Even if it's with drum brakes, the addition of power is a game changer for your stopping ability, even with drum brakes. I mean, these D-Series has had 4-wheel drums with power boosters, up until 73. They stopped well. They towed a lot of weight. People did a lot of stuff with them. So, don't be afraid of the power drum. But if you're going to go to disc brakes, I really encourage you to go power as well. And then now you've moved into the 20th century as far as brakes go. Power disc brakes are pretty much the standard, that, they've had since, I think GM started them in 69. And I think Ford was right around there as well. International was a little bit behind, but, anytime we do a GM axle conversion in one of these C or D series, they always get power brakes. You can argue Hydro Boost or vacuum. I like vacuum in a stock type restoration or, general daily driver. The vacuum brakes work fine. There's no problems with them. You see these guys that complain online. They're like, oh, my brakes are terrible. I've redone everything and they don't work very well. And then people are like, oh, go Hydro Boost. Like, no, that's not the answer. That is a Band-Aid that may or may not work, because if they're terrible with a vacuum booster, they're probably going to be terrible with Hydro Boost. So, the only reason that you want the Hydro Boost is a little bit more pedal pressure or a little bit more pressure at the wheel cylinders because of the hydraulic pressure that the Hydro Boost provides versus the vacuum assist that the vacuum booster provides. One thing I will say that about Hydro Boost is that it can be quirky, especially in these retrofitted systems. I found, like with the black truck that has a mechanical power steering pump, because that's how Hydro Boost is powered, is through the power steering pump, that when my foot is on the brake and I turn the steering wheel, I can feel the pedal like pulsate a little bit, or vice versa. If I am steering and I step on the brake pedal, the steering wheel gets a little heavier. And it's not because of pressure, because the engine in my black truck was in a school bus and it powered a massive steering box. It's the flow restriction that you get because it goes through the brakes first. Hydro Boost gets all of the juice from the power steering pump first, then it goes to the steering gearbox and then back to the reservoir can. So, you get some little quirks like that occasionally, but, Hydro Boost, I could go either way. Of course, like I said, I have it in the black truck because it's diesel. I don't have a vacuum source. So Hydro Boost was the easiest to do. And I'm running 1-ton brakes, big rotors, big calipers. I got 14-inch drums in the back. So that truck would have had Hydro Boost, anyways, if it was a GM. So that's why I run that. My green truck with 4-wheel discs and 35-inch tires and 3/4 ton brakes all the way around, it is a vacuum boosted truck and it stops very well. I can lock all 4 wheels up, no problem whatsoever. That's 1 1/8 4-wheel disc master cylinder, generic Corvette 4-wheel disc master on GM pickup calipers. Nothing special, no fancy pads, no fancy rotors, nothing. But I can lock up that truck at will, no problem. Towing with it, there's times where I feel like I don't even need trailer brakes because the truck brakes work so well. And that is a vacuum boosted system. So, it just depends. But having the wheel ends be in proper working order first before you start throwing Gucci parts at the master cylinder, something you really need to make sure you have handled. The one hiccup that some people run into is the proportioning block. There's a little pill inside there that slides back and forth to prevent brake failure. In the event that you blow out a rear brake hose or a caliper fails, that pill will move and block that end of the truck so that you still have your front brakes or your back brakes, whatever is still functioning, for a safety thing. Well, what'll happen is when you're bleeding your brakes after a new parts install, that pill will move because it thinks you've lost brake pressure when really you're just trying to get fluid to move down these places. So, I've seen guys fight that stuff and in the end they had to, reset their proportioning block, or replace it all together. Some of them get sticky inside and you can't get them to reset. And so you got to replace them. So, when people are having those kinds of problems, you try to troubleshoot that and go from there. But yeah, the brake proportioning block does throw a lot of people for a loop, as well. But no, that's really the gist of brakes. I'm sure I missed some things. I'm sure I overstated some other things, but that's the joys of being real and not AI. So, I appreciate everybody. I thank you for following along. Please donate if you can. Subscribe to me on Instagram, whatever. It all helps. It all goes to the greater good. I love all of you. And until next time, I'm Dan, Binder Boneyard.